Hi there, come on in. It's time for the Outdoor Digest. This week, we're going to go into the world, under the water, I guess I should say, into the world of panfish. We're going to look at how they take baits, how they take worms, why it's sometimes difficult to catch these little critters in the shallows in the spring. We're going to come up with some solutions to that. We have a great recipe for easy all-around fillets. Tremendous way to cook panfish. Bob Garner's outdoor commentary and a lot more. So you stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost. It's time for the Outdoor Digest. In the spring, usually it's starting in May, you can start catching bluegills and sunfish with a fly rod in the shallows. Now, if you stay close to shore, you're going to have lots of action, but you're going to catch more of the smaller ones because they make their spawning beds in just a foot or so of water close to shore. Now, this is a pumpkin seed sunfish, brightly colored, much brighter than a bluegill, but every bit as scrappy, except they're usually smaller, oftentimes a little too small to keep. It's easy to spot the beds of bluegills and sunfish in the shallows. They're small, circular, sandy, or gravel pockets about a foot or so in diameter. This is where the female lays up to 30,000 eggs, and the male guards the nest until the eggs hatch. That usually takes about 3 to 5 days. And with the sunfish in so close, they're easy to catch. And what's a more traditional bait than a worm? Worms and crawlers wash into the lakes during rainstorms, and most fish love to eat worms. Now, you can tell that this one is probably a bluegill, which is the most desirable of the small sunfish because it grows larger than pumpkin seeds. But you can tell it's a bluegill by the dark green body and the black spot on the gill flap. Now, watch the way it goes after this second worm. Slurp, like that, no hesitation. It rushed right up, quickly opened its gill flaps, sucked the worm into its mouth, then back to guarding the nest. Here's another male bluegill guarding the eggs, but we're going to distract him with a worm. He savagely grabs it, takes it off to swallow. Then he goes back to guarding the nest, but we have an intruder. That's a little bass that starts edging nearby, and the bluegill doesn't want it disturbing the nest or eating the eggs, so he chases that little bass away. A little lure like this daredevil can be used to catch those big sunfish because it imitates an intruder. You want to use a small lure with an ultralight rod. Don't retrieve it too fast, and you'll find that a little lure or a spinner will threaten the fish on their beds. So what they'll do is they'll chase it. Sometimes they'll strike at it if they're mad enough. I took that lure out of the water, but this bluegill holds his position. He's watching to see if that intruder is coming back. So I dropped the lure on the other side of him, pulled it in front of his nose, and he chases it again. But then he goes back to the spawning bed. I think he was satisfied that it wasn't a real threat. Sometimes you'll get a whole group of fish chasing a small lure, but apparently they're not doing this so much out of hunger. They seem upset that something new is parading through their neighborhood. Now watch this one here aggressively puff at the daredevil sitting on the bottom. He's huffing at it. He doesn't want to eat it. Puffs towards it, doesn't take it in like he would a worm. And a small bass comes in from the side to investigate, but it goes on. That bluegill doesn't like a critter like that roots around on the bottom. That's a threat to the eggs he's guarding. Now, if you want to fool bluegills into taking a lure to eat, use a small rubber spider or maybe a popper that looks like the insects that they're so fond of. Now, these three float, and they look like insects on the surface. But this rather plain-looking fly is a streamer or wet fly. It imitates an underwater insect or a small minnow. Now, I'll drop this one in the water right above a bluegill that's guarding a bed. Now, notice, he doesn't rush after it like he would a worm. But when it does attract his attention, he doesn't suck it in like he would do with a worm. He puffs at it, he bites at it, but not to eat, more like he's trying to drive it away. Here's a different bluegill with the same reaction, huffing at it, then he just goes on. It didn't taste like food, didn't Tastes like an enemy, I guess, so he lets it alone. But if you move a fly or a rubber spider in the water, you move it a little more quickly, you're going to have a better chance of getting a bluegill to smack it and hook himself. So give it a few twitches and be quick on the rod tip to set the hook, hoping you'll latch onto his lip. Be prepared for a battle, because even with the small bluegills and sunfish, they fight like crazy. Now, when you're satisfied that the battle is over, lift him out of the water and see what you've caught. Now, pumpkin seeds are more prevalent in the shallower water like we're fishing right now. Bigger bluegills spawn in deeper water, 3 or 4 feet deep, which would be difficult to see from shore. Now, this one is good sized. In fact, it's eating size. It looks more like a bluegill. Sometimes you will catch gills that have some pumpkin seed characteristics, obviously some crossbreeding in their history. Now, I'm going to release this one, not because I'm being particularly sporting. No, sirree, I'm a catch and fillet fisherman right from the word go, but I know I can get some bigger ones, so this one goes back. Rubber spiders and flies look natural in the water, floating like insects, but keep in mind, they don't weigh anything. They're not like a lure that you can cast. So how is it that we get these spiders and wet flies out to the fish? Well, we can't use a regular rod and reel like we would with a big 1-ounce daredevil, because outfits like that are designed to cast lures that are heavy, so we take a different approach. We tie the fly onto some monofilament line. That's our leader. That's clear, it's lightweight, fish can't see it, but it's strong. Use about 6 or 8 feet of 4 to 6 pound leader. Tie it to your fly line. A simple knot will hold it, and it's this fly line that makes it possible to cast the nearly weightless fly out to the fish. Because in fly fishing, we cast the line. It's like throwing a rope. It's the weight of the line that carries the fly out to where we want it. Now, as you make several false casts, you let out a little more line each time and then lay it down on the water. The spider is out there floating on the end, and you twitch it over the fish, imitating an insect that it might like to eat. Now, casting with a fly rod throws a lot of people. They think it's difficult, but it really isn't. Now, I'm going to use yarn here with a short rod so you can see it to show you how easy it is to cast. But the whole trick is in the timing. It's in pausing on your back cast before you make your forecast, waiting for the line to straighten out. Before you pull that in the opposite direction. If you change direction before the line has had a chance to straighten out, you're going to have problems. It won't go forward all the way. So just pause. Wait until you feel the fly line tug when it's straightened out, and then you'll solve that deep, dark mystery of fly casting. Then you can get into the fun of watching the bluegills come after your rubber spider in the shallows. And sometimes you never know where they're going to come from. Just watch. Whoa, in from the side. That happened so fast, it was a smaller bluegill. Too small to take that hook easily, so I didn't get him hooked. But that's excitement. You know, it's fun just to monkey around with these little fish on a warm, sunny afternoon. But it is that bigger one there that I'm after. He doesn't seem interested. Now, bluegills feed primarily on insects. They also eat aquatic plants, but they don't feed at night normally, just during the day. Mornings and evenings are best. Now, watch it here. That little one's coming in for another attack. Watch, here it comes. Well, just like a flash. And I wonder, though, is that little fish hungry, or is it defending a bed that I don't see? Or maybe it isn't even trying to take that spider in its mouth. But now I'm going to get that bigger one interested when I pull the spider away. Maybe it is hungry, I'm not quite sure. But I think it had better act fast, you know, because we're getting near the territory of that little one. Oh, there he goes again. Isn't that great? You know, it's interesting, though, how that bigger one won't react when the spider is overhead, but he will come off his bed to investigate. And coming up here is what I think is exciting. Watch it. I love watching that fish zero in on the fly, moves in slowly, and then smacks it on the surface. There we go. That's beautiful. But the question still is in my mind, did that fish strike to get something to eat, or was it being aggressive? Well, I'm going to have the answer here in just a moment. But we're going to see that this really isn't a bluegill after all. It is a pumpkin seed sunfish. Has the blue lines around its mouth, bright orange belly, red spot on the gill flap, and here's the answer to why the pumpkin seed struck. No hook in its mouth, it's hooked above the eye on its head. It was just slapping the spider out of anger. So back home it goes, angry as ever, I'm sure. But this is what is happening all over the country in late spring. Male bluegills guarding the nests, fanning the 20 or 30,000 eggs until they hatch. The females are out in deeper water where the males will go when the young arrive. But until then, it's guard duty. Occasionally grabbing a bite to eat or snapping at an intruder when it comes too close. That's great, isn't it? They're hard fighters in the water. They don't quit when you have them in your hand. They buzz back home with lots of energy and enthusiasm, and they're great to eat. That's why sunfish and bluegills are America's favorite in the fishing world.
Ron Gardner caught this 6-pound, 1-ounce, 22.5-inch largemouth bass on a Rapala early in the morning. And here's a big crappie that Mark Frazier said hit his rooster tail spinner. It weighed 2 pounds, 9 ounces. Mike Carr caught this almost 11.5-pound walleye fishing through the ice with a tip-up and a minnow. And here's a thick, big 10-point farm buck Elmer DePlanche took during the bow season. Now, they don't come much wider than Dan Blunt Jr.'s 16-pointer with a 22-inch spread taken during his state's gun deer season. And here's Richard Plisco's 23.5-pound dandy gobbler. It had a 9 3/4-inch beard. J. Matthew Baldus tagged this 11-pointer with a 20.5-inch spread with a shotgun in the middle of the deer season from a ground blind. And here's one heck of a channel catfish. Lynn Belford caught this 16 3/4-pound cat. Lynn was fishing a Mep spinner when she caught it, and I'll bet she wasn't fishing for catfish.
Actually, I was trolling for smallmouth bass when this hit that Mep spinner. Wasn't sure what I had on there. Only had 6-pound test line and no net in the boat. And I knew if I lifted it out of the water that it would break that line. So I thought, and the only thing I could think of that I had, I was by myself, was a pair of pliers. So I reached over the back of the boat and I gave it one hoist and brought it in that way. It's the only thing I had.
Well, having the right tool for the job, Lynn Belford, is what put a grip on your selection as our Outdoor Digest Trophy Angler of the Week. Soon it will be illegal to dump any waste in the ocean. Congress has taken this step to stop problems that occurred last year along the Atlantic coast. The Conservation Reserve Program, which takes land out of agricultural production and pays the farmer to plant grasses, is set to go again this year. Farmers have from July 17th to August 4th to sign up. Wildlife managers say the program is a major boon to wildlife populations. White amur, or the Chinese grass carp, known for its ability to clean weeds from small lakes and ponds, are selling like hotcakes. Ohio allows only sterile triploid carp to be planted. Last year, 81,000 were purchased by Ohioans. Iowa reports that their hunter safety training program is really working. Since becoming mandatory in 1983, 270,000 hunters have taken the course. Accidents have averaged only 1/3 to 1/2 of what they were prior to 1983. The National Shooting Sports Foundation has opened a toll-free hotline to link shooters with places to shoot. You can call the foundation at 1-800-458-3006 or put it in shooter's language, it's 1-800-458-3006. And good news this week for Great Lakes salmon anglers. A study conducted by Michigan State University shows skin-trimmed fillets of salmon be well below the limit of PCBs that the federal government bases its fish-eating advisories on. I'm very concerned about a recent letter to the editor in the Detroit News written by a couple of elementary school students from the state of Maryland. They said that Michigan is the Wolverine state, and yet there are no longer Wolverines in Michigan. They have become extinct in Michigan because of hunters and the taking over of their land by developers. Now, the kids also encouraged Michigan to make it a crime to hunt Wolverines. Now, the truth is, there's not one shred of evidence throughout history to show that one live Wolverine, under its own free will, ever set foot in the Wolverine state. The nickname came from the colonial days when Michigan was the hub of fur trading and handled boatloads of Canadian Wolverine hides. I called the school in Maryland and found that the kids who wrote the letter are in a gifted class and were probably taught or read that hunters and land developers decimated Michigan's wolverines. The Detroit News went along with this mistaken notion, and who knows how many readers bought it too. But the truth? It's plain and simple. Not a single species of animal, large or small in North America, has ever become endangered or threatened by licensed hunters. We know as hunters that law-abiding sportsmen are wildlife's best friend. It's too bad gifted kids and big city newspaper editors can't figure it out too.
Ospreys are large birds of prey, commonly called fish hawks or fish eagles. Why don't ospreys take many game fish? Ospreys dive into the water feet first, rarely penetrating more than a foot or two. Fish that swim close to the surface are generally species of fish that are of little value to man.
Coming up June 23rd, 24th, and 25th at Houghton Lake, Michigan is Fred Trost Outdoor Fair. It's the 7th annual fair, and it's held each year on the spacious grounds of the Houghton Lake High School. In the high school, exhibits ranging from new products in the hunting and fishing area to big bucks and trophy fish will be featured, along with decoys and flat art exhibits and a phenomenal display of award-winning taxidermy. The pride of the outdoor portion of the fair, though, are the shooting events. Bow hunters are asked to bring their bows to shoot the silhouettes and the novelty shoots, including the bionic buck. Now, you might bend a few arrows, but the challenge, well, it's really worth it. At the shooting show, you will see demonstrations of trick shooting, along with competitions between good shooters, such as this one where Harry Reinfelder shoots 5 clay pigeons out of the air at one time. Now, there's plenty more to see and do at the outdoor fair. I hope you can join us. Be sure and bring your family along. Remember now, that's June 23rd, 24th, and 25th at the high school in Houghton Lake, Michigan. Hope to see you there.
Coming up this June at the Outdoor Fair is a brand new wildlife art expo we're holding at the Outdoor Fair. And one of the attractions there are some of the 1989 award-winning mounts from the Michigan Taxidermist Association. They held their competition this past March in Grand Rapids. Brad Bruce is the long-standing president of the MTA, and I talked to him about how far taxidermy has come in the past few years. The first thing you notice walking in the door that I notice is the quality of these mounts far exceed any museum that you see anywhere in the country.
I think by far, Fred, the quality over the last, this is our 7th convention, and the quality at this point in time is just staggering, for lack of a better word, but I think that is probably the right way to put it.
But mount after mount after mount, they aren't the typical old-style taxidermy of the fish stuck on the wall, or the pheasant that, you know, the pheasants you have here, the courting rooster.
There's a lot of animation and natural history depicted in these mounts, and the mini dioramas, or the scenes that they're in, is what you see here.
Back when we did the one taxidermy competition we held when we started the show, mounts were, I think taxidermists even had a concept of themselves as technicians or skilled trade person, not artists. Art is something that has come in.
It has come in the last few years, last several years, but you're right. I think from that first competition that you sponsored, from that plateau, it's gone into the art world. Whether or not, you know, we ever make the breakthrough into fine arts or not remains to be seen, but I think that's a goal, certainly some of these artists in here, and I think they are artists in every sense of the word, three-dimensional artists. We're not dealing with a flat surface on canvas, although the flat artists will probably complain, but three-dimensionally, I mean, when you look at these mounts, they're good from every direction, so it's a three-dimensional art form.
What is the goal of the taxidermists nowadays, at least the ones in the Michigan Taxidermist Association, when you're adding the elements you see in these exhibits of the
I don't know if you call them dioramas, the pedestal with the settings and the plants and you're getting part of the habitat there.
Right, absolutely.
So what are they trying to do?
Well, I think the overall goal, and speaking for all of the members, would be to break through into a very acceptable art form, albeit wildlife, but and totally shed the old stuffed quote image, if you will, as that's certainly not the case today.
I'll bet you that at our first competition, every fish could be hung on the wall.
Right, I would agree with that.
Very few fish here can be hung on the wall. They're freestanding mounts. Both sides of the fish are finished.
They are.
They're chasing a bait fish, chasing a lure. They're picking up food off the bottom. Or it's not something that you would put on a wall. It's something you'd put on a table or somewhere else in the house.
Could refer to it as wildlife furniture, if you will. It's getting very popular. The case mounts protect, of course, obviously the mount within, and it frames them, if you will, much like a picture. And you're right, they're pedestal mounts. The animation is there, and the thing that I hear a lot of in here, comments from the public, is, how did they do that? And that's neat,
Thanks to Brad Bruce and all the MTA members, taxidermy has become an art form. Many of the award-winning mounts and dioramas you'll see at the fair will be on display at our Hunting and Fishing Museum in Houghton Lake throughout the rest of the year. We'll also have an exhibit of some of the biggest and most unusual deer heads that were winners of our Stroh's Hunting Awards in 1989, along with award-winning deer head mounts by the Michigan Taxidermist Association. And back once again at the fair as a part of the new Wildlife Art Expo will be a display of current photography winners by the Outdoor Writers Association of America. Nationally renowned photographers such as Bill Ray and Irwin Bauer, along with Michigan's own Steve Griffin, Tom Hugler, Henry Zeman, and Richard P. Smith, often turn up as winners in the OWAA contest. This photo display is tops of its kind in the country. Along with the taxidermy and photography, we'll have exhibits by Michigan waterfowl and fish carvers, including Greg DeGeer, and wildlife artists on canvas who will display and sell their artwork. Whitetail master Chuck Denault will be there, along with the painter of Daybreak, Heiner Hertling. If you received a Daybreak as a PBS Pledge Premium, bring it to the fair and arrange for Heiner to do a custom remark. You'll get a kick out of meeting him and all the artists who participate in this new Wildlife Art Expo.
Larry Klingen has sent us a recipe for easy all-around fillets. And it does have a different ingredient. It's got
What,
cheese
cheese
balls.
balls?
Yeah.
I could see eating that before you had it.
Oh, no.
Look, it looks like perch,
Any kind
bluegill.
of panfish here would work
terrific.
perfect. Got lemon pepper and your cheese balls and eggs. And you're
Oh,
going to
just
make...
a breading.
Yeah, it is. It's a different kind of breading, though. You're going to go
Right.
ahead and mix up your eggs and then dip your fillets into that and then into the crushed cheese balls. And it takes quite a few. I was really kind of surprised because they come back, of course, they're full of air, basically.
You know, it's kind of interesting how somebody would think of this.
Yeah.
Let's take those cheese balls, crush them up.
He had no crackers probably around, and I tell you what, it's just an excellent recipe. Gives it just a little bit of different flavor. Just dip them.
Dip them and put them in. I wonder what it would be like if you used cheese.
No, I think that this is, like you say, you could use the cheese crackers, but it really, with the airiness of these, it really makes a different kind of flavor.
I'll be done.
And just sprinkle a little bit of lemon pepper on as a frying.
A little bit?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, you did.
I like
fried
it.
fish. I know Bob Garner loves fried fish like this. I wonder if he's going to want to dip it in mayonnaise or lemon or what.
I don't want anything with this.
That's what
Natural.
I thought. That's what I thought until I tried it with some of this.
Hey,
Of course,
listen,
I've only had about 8 of these right now.
listen. As a matter of fact, you have made a royal pig of yourself while we're sitting here waiting to. You have made a nuisance out of yourself. There was a whole plate full of these things until
there was.
Freddie started showing some teeth, and all of a sudden they went straight down. You comment on the recipe. I'm sitting back this week.
Okay, I'll tell you what, folks. This is an incredible recipe. Who would think of cheese balls? They are great.
Oh, great
You
coating.
can taste the cheese balls, and that lemon pepper has that little bit of...
Just a zing.
Yeah, zing to it, and Garner, you're eating all of them.
I'm taking the last two because
I think that's his share this week.
All I can say is that if you like to fish fried or breaded, try it with this cheese ball recipe. It's
as a matter of fact, just don't even try it. Just stuff yourself with it.
oh, it's great.
It's out at long last. The digest. Next week on Outdoor Digest, we're going to show you some different techniques for fishing for northern pike, a fish much like a muskie, lives in the northern part of the United States. Its claim to fame is the way it fights. We have a recipe, too, for it's called Pike Pie, kind of like a quiche, has broccoli and cheese. I tell you, Bob Garner proclaims that it's perfect. That's no surprise, but join us next week for all the action right here on Outdoor Digest.
Jeez, oh, Pete. Oh, this is great. Oh, Chris.